I'm not impatient. What the fuck is? Hey, Brian.
Ryne,
Cool.
Ryne, you need to just. This is a song you should listen to. Listen to this song.
It sounds more exciting than what it is.
Let's see how we can lose our next 3 listeners.
Testicles, 1, 2, testicles, 1, 2. Hello, good morning. We are in the meantime with MeanDave. This is episode 30. We've hit the big 3-0. As you know, people are usually resistant to getting old, and the meantime is no exception. We knew that episode 30 was lingering around the corner, and so didn't know if we really wanted to keep going. You know what I mean? Because I can choose to make these or not. This is episode, we're in weeks 11 and 12 of the coronavirus. The outcome of all that. It's been 3 months since we started doing these during the shelter-in-place, quarantine, all that kind of shit. And in the last 2 weeks, been some other developments. I don't know if you... I'm not sure if fans of the all 10 to 15 to 20 of the views that we get here in the meantime with MeanDave are aware of the news. You might want to look it up because there's been a lot that's gone on in 2 weeks. That's, a lot of people left their houses and they went to go and walk in the middle of the streets to make a point. And that point was sort of something that needed to be said probably since I was a child. Actually, since I was born, really. And people have. And it's a pretty inspiring thing. I don't, no one's asked me about what I think about it, and for good reason, because it's, I'm one of the people that kind of thinks, duh, this needs to happen. It's amazing that people put us in a position to where we have to sort of make these extreme gestures to get people to do the right thing. There's a movie called Do the Right Thing. It's all about this very thing. Isn't that weird? I was raised on a lot of entertainment that tended to kind of shine a light on a lot of these issues, and I feel like I came out of it with a pretty good head about it, even in the face of discrimination at times that I've ran into or was even unaware of. I grew up in I wouldn't say it was mostly white. I grew up in a mostly mixed suburb where there was, probably the largest group would be, just general white people, but amongst them, who knows what specific white people. But we had, Mexican, Middle Eastern, Asian, Black. It was, African, you could say, but they were also from non-African places. And the whole subject of what's going on really it revolves around something that also, when I was a child, we had an incident too that came up with, brought up a lot of this stuff to the surface. Rodney King, and today the current guy is George Floyd, and then also Breonna Taylor, who's been brought into the news a lot more after seeing what's been going on. And there's been nonstop protests all over the place, all over the world, in solidarity with kind of a movement to just sort of, hey, do you think we could stop having racist cops, or even cops that are a little overzealous about their jobs? And in recovery, what I like to call this is a worldwide inventory is what we're taking. People are kind of like fed up with a lot of this bullshit. And I think that's what they're really getting into the streets about. It is about, valuing Black lives, and because they have been highly undervalued in not just our country, and probably in the world, really. And then from that stems, I feel, all the other lives. That's why this whole, when people start spouting off about all lives matter, It's kind of like it's always the biggest defensive play of someone who's just feels probably in their conscience a little guilty. Because if someone doesn't feel guilty, as I've ran across, plenty of sociopathic people in regard to all this, if they don't feel guilty about it, they don't really care. They don't say nothing about it. I've had I would say the fortune of being one of the exceptions to some people that had some very racist and prejudiced views growing up. And I ain't gonna lie, when I was a kid, all right, what's the first thing you see? You see differences as a child. Racism is highly taught, but when we're kids, we make fun of people for their appearances and stuff. And I remember saying some really stupid shit when I was, in elementary school, just to try and hurt feelings of somebody. But one of my closest friends was a black dude, and if we're mad at each other, we say dumb shit to each other. He said dumb shit to me about how I looked, and I probably said the same shit. And then we'd go play Nintendo. I beat Legend of Zelda at his house. That's right, Adam Thornton. Fucking wish I could find that guy. Hopefully the cops didn't get him. But no, he's that's just an example of just growing up. And I don't catalog a lot of instances of my personal experience with a lot of this shit, because when I run into it, Dave Chappelle had a great bit about it. It's like you run into it and it's something that happens so much you're kind of stunned and you're like, oh my God, that was racist. And you almost got to laugh at it, but it's not laughable when you have a gun pointed at you, if you're being held against your will without any reason, or you're being held down with your knee on the back of your neck and you're explaining that you can't breathe, and that seems to happen to very much so to one particular group and others. But I think through addressing this and how it affects Black lives, the rest of them will kind of be paid attention to as well. It's kind of like this is the main focus, and from all of that, hopefully justice plays out. It boggles my mind how much people have trouble just sort of wrestling with their own conscience. And then just like in recovery, when we're recovering from drug and alcohol addiction and we're doing this inventory and stuff, what we find is we want our higher power to rid us of character defects, but then we also hold on to them. We don't want to get rid of character defects in many ways. Some of the ones that were like the ones that kept us safe, as we think, or kept us familiar and comfortable. And that's what we also are experiencing is we're seeing who wants to hold on to this old defective behavior that has no use, it has no purpose, except just to make a small amount of people who really don't regularly mix with ethnic people. I mean, it all comes from the same areas. It's funny to watch people in certain areas think that they hate something that they really don't have any experience with. But yeah, that's really what you find is people are just holding on to these old, outdated, racist ideals, and they want to, really just to feel like they're right about something. Who knows why it just feels comfortable and it feels safe. And what's great too is that a lot of times when these people get called on their shit, they're crying. There's at least like 2 or 3 videos of these fucking white supremacist pieces of shit, and they're crying. That's something. If you want something to uplift your day, of course, unless you're a white supremacist who watches my videos, which I don't think there are any, but if there are, hopefully you get some perspective. Anyway, so that being said, please keep doing what you're doing, people, to try and get people to act right. Police officers. I have 2 police officer friends on Facebook, primarily. One of them is a guy I grew up with since we were kids. I mean, I grew up with him to junior high, and then his family moved and stuff, and I never thought I'd ever see him again. And turns out he lives in the area. He ends up dating another friend of mine, and so we come into contact again, and he's a cool dude. He's a really cool guy. who just happens to be a police officer. And based on what little I know of him throughout, for after, coming back into contact with him, I get the impression that he's a police officer who does operate from the heart. He's also not white. A lot of those too. I mean, that's the thing with law enforcement. It ain't just like we have a white police brigade. We there's a lot of complicated intersectionality of this issue with law enforcement itself. In the initial when the protests started and the police were instigating the majority of a lot of the incidents that were violent, it called to mind a quote that I remember a lot from Gangs in New York, the Scorsese movie that was kind of a masterpiece until the end. The end was kind of weak, but yeah, there's a part where when the rich old farts are all talking amongst themselves, and one of them says, "What's the quote that you always say? You're probably not going to like this. You can always hire one half of the poor to kill the other half." I believe that he was quoting the guy whose name begins with T, not Taft, but something like that. Yeah, it's a mentality of power. Power always knows that as long as you can divide people and keep them poor and needing money, you can get them to do your bidding to deal with the others. And that's kind of what I feel has been played out in all this. And yeah, but again, yeah, keep protesting, keep donating to the right causes, and help people and involve in all this stuff. Me personally, I've been staying home a lot because, that's what I've been doing. I'm not going to get on BART and deal with the COVID shit to go places. I've been sharing articles on social media. I posted the black square. Didn't tag BLM, so hopefully I didn't, so whatever. And that was just because I just don't use hashtags all that much. But it wasn't anything out of, some righteousness or whatever. It was just trying to show signs of solidarity with the ideas. And also, quite frankly, I attract trouble. So if I'm on the front line, I'm also bad luck. Anybody who's ever been around me for any period of time with the police, I'm kind of bad luck. But one thing I will say, and this made it into some jokes of mine, was that I posted a joke online about said if you want to make a police officer know how it feels, step on an innocent donut in front of one. And and if you really want to really send the message home, make sure it's a jelly donut, so you can see it bleeding onto the sidewalk. And then and I saw some likes come up. Wasn't the most popular post or whatever, but I did all right. And I saw one of the clicks, and one of the likes was my friend Ronnie, who's a police officer. He goes to one of my regular shows over here in Fremont, and I forgot we're Facebook friends. And Ronnie's a cool motherfucker, and I cannot wait to run into him. On BART. He's a BART police officer, and I've talked to him about some not things. I haven't seen him since all this, but I'll look forward to the conversations I have with them because and I'm not one of these people that so much says, "Oh, there are good cops and whatever." And da da da. Yeah, there were. I don't want to say there's so much good as much as there. I think there's people that are doing their job, trying to do their job, and then there's a good portion of them. You work a job, you do you make shortcuts. You don't do things according. Take the job that you do. All right, look at it, and most jobs I've had when I'm working for somebody else, I'm doing my best to do the bare minimum and get the most out of it. Most money, most credit, whatever. But I'm not looking to. Very rare. Any time that I have done a job where I'm doing, my best work and all that kind of shit, that's really just for my own conscious kind of thing. It is so incredibly difficult looking at all of the stories from Serpico to forget his last name, Michael whatever, the guy who put the CIA on blast for infiltrating LAPD and putting crack into the neighborhoods down there in the 90s. There's so much that just points to just how difficult it is to be a good police officer these days. So yeah, it's not as Dr. Philip Zimbardo, writer of The Lucifer Effect and creator of the Stanford Prison Experiment, would call it. It's not a symptom. It's not a case of some bad apples. It's a bad barrel. It's a bad barrel syndrome, and it needs to be overhauled. And I think that's what all of this movement is really talking about, is getting back to, look, if we're going to be policed, we need people to police us who have our best interests at heart, so that we're not putting ourselves at risk just having just having some presence that's intended to help us, but really is just imprisoning us and as citizens. And then imagine how the layers, once you are a felon and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't help and whatnot. So, and these are symptoms with the culture, as far as I feel. Anyways, I can go on and on. I've spent 15 minutes talking about. I think I've said enough, and I'm not a voice to really be going to about all this kind of shit. So I will. What I wanted to do with this episode, mainly because my mom looks forward to these, and I don't like disappointing my mother and my stepdad. And just these are really more like letters to them. Let them know I'm okay. And also, one of the things that's, I'm probably going to start doing these like once every 2 weeks, because it just makes it better for editing, coming up with stuff. I had a lot more to do when the quarantine was going on, but I've got something that I'm doing every week around here. We just had our first live comedy event that wasn't on the Zooms. This past Saturday in Newark. It's called the Comedy Drive-In, and it was a huge success. We had all 60 cars parked in there, including the mayor of Newark was there. Put on by, you may know him if you've been watching these episodes. He's one of my good friends, Mike Bucci, right here. Creator of the Tiger meme, Tiger MeanDave. He's a city councilman here in Newark, and he once this thing hit somewhere around early May, he got a bug to try and come up with some workaround to still have a live show while also recognizing all of the shelter-in-place measures dealing with COVID-19. And he came up with the drive-in thing. It's not. There's other in Santa Cruz. They're doing a comedy drive-in too, but it's not quite to this scale. Ours is better. But what he did was he also has an inflatable movie screen that because they put on movies in the park in the summer, and so what they do is he built a stage on top of a trailer, which looks like a horse trailer, but it's like it's some trailer. He built a stage on top of it, and it's all lit and all that, and he has the movie screen right next to it, and then he uses one of my old 8mm cameras that. Because apparently he can't find a current camera within his price range to use. So they're using my old piece of shit. It's not a piece of shit, actually. It's a very good camera, and I think my parents gave it to me for Christmas. Thank you very much for that. But he's got this camera, and he then films the comedian on the stage nearby, and that image is projected onto the projector for the cars to see in the back. However, the image that he was projecting this past week, one of my jokes was the fact that it was only about like a foot more taller than the image that was on the stage. So it really just looked like two images side by side of the same shit. And I said, next time maybe zoom into the comedian's face, like have the image be more on the center of, so that hopefully the comedian can see. Trouble is he can't zoom, he can't operate the camera during the show, because it's on a table and all high, so it's got to be like one kind of image, and hopefully we'll let the comedians know, hey, kind of stay in this one spot, because then we'll figure all that shit out. But I'm going to be hosting the rest of these. I headlined this last one, and then I'm going to be hosting the next 3 weekends, and we got some great lineups for that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The audience loved it. Trouble is they honk and they use their lights. They flash their lights to let them know, like, laughter.
Plumpkin in this town before 10 a.m. Men's room, food court, New Park Mall, stall number 1. Tell him MeanDave sent you. He'll treat you nice. So, hell yeah, man. I gotta tell you, man. I always thought, I never appreciated Newark until I fucked up my life and was forced to move back here. And it's kind of like, You can take the guy out at Newark, but Newark will always suck you right the fuck back in. You know, all of my friends, that's what I love about this place, man. There's no escape in Newark, California. You know, that's what I love about it. And I wouldn't want to escape it. This is where I grew up. I fucking love it. But if you told me at the age of 43, you're not only going to be doing stand-up comedy, but you're going to perform in a scaffolding match, a one-man scaffold match in the parking lot of the place that had the thrash show with the shitty thrash bands that you knocked over the tables out when you were 13. And not only that, you're going to be the headliner. This is, I don't know if I would have continued on from there. But thanks to recovery, that's what keeps me going. All right, I'm actually 6.5 years clean and sober, if you can believe it. So take another toke. Toke it up, drink up, whatever the hell you're doing that's illegal or not illegal these days. I can't keep up. And, because I got to tell you, I do appreciate all the flashing and all that kind of stuff.
Trouble is with that, if you're not careful, you might burn out your battery. So we had to jumpstart, I think, 1 or 2 cars. And next time, let people know, like, be mindful of your battery. Don't leave, figure all that shit out. Use your head. But yeah, it went off great. So that was a blessing, and it felt great because we hadn't been on stage in it was me, Nina G, and Eric Summers, my dear friend from last episode, and then Mike hosting, and then and we had a great. The highlight of the night was when I went to go put my sandwich in Nina G's car, and it set off her car alarm right at the start of her set, and just hearing the car alarm in an audience of parked cars from behind the stage, and then me trying to stop it when we got her keys. It took us at least about a minute to get all to stop this. Because she's directing us from the stage to where her purse is. We got her keys, and I pressed a button, and then it started just going faster. Started beeping faster. So yeah, we were all just dying after we stopped it, and she handled it like a champ, and it was a great way to kick off her set. Eric was great. He's definitely at his funniest when he hasn't done comedy in a long time, and he's bitter and angry, and he's just a hornet's nest that's been shaken up for the last 2.5 months. And he went out there and he delivered great, like all of his new material and the stuff that really his sarcasm and all that. And then he went into his familiar territory and he did okay, but it was the usual thing with him. And I kept telling him, you're the funniest when you're just your real angry self. But he still did great. He had all of his was great, no critique there. And then me, I got to make fun of Mike Bucci a bunch not make fun of him. The dude, I love the guy. He's a brother. He, he's a fellow Newark raised young man, and he's got a great family, Megan Bucci and Kendra, his daughter, and a great group of friends, the crew that helped out there. And it was really an awesome experience. And we needed one of those. So we did that. And then one of the things I wanted to do here, because I haven't had a chance really to do them, or to point it out. Fortunately, I'm going to have to move my little shit buddy here. In the shelter in place, I've had the benefit of, everybody's been doing online shit. And so I've participated in more podcasts and, oh, by the way, we have checking in. That's right. We got some checking in to do. I believe we're checking in with mostly dogs this week, it seems like. I think this is Melanie and Barry.
So here is a life hack when you're taking your dog for a walk. There's no need to buy any of those fancy poop bags. Just use, a bread bag. Recycle. So yeah, my dog pooped and I put it in there. I do use the poop bag sometimes. But whenever you can, reuse.
All right, there we go. So that's important information, it looked like. It looks like we got, one more from Melanie and Barry. What's up?
Another little update. I was able to use this twice on one walk. My dog has pooped 2 times. So that's 2 poop bags I used. But actually, it was just a bread bag. Save the earth. Pick up your poop and, oh, is she going again? Oh, just pee. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
All right, I'm glad they cleared that up. Okay, so here we are. This is a list of the podcasts, both online and on, and I'll throw the info as I list them off. But since the shelter in place, this is all the stuff that I've been guesting on other people's stuff, and I might be forgetting one too here or there. But I've been on the Country Fried podcast, which you can find on YouTube, and I think there may be, it might be on whatchamacallit, Apple, iTunes, whatever the fuck. Gag on This podcast, which they promoted when we recorded it, but then when it was released, it kind of got released a little quietly or whatever. I had to go looking for it, but it's on iTunes. Here's what it looks like. That's the Gag on This podcast. That was cool. They made me sign a contract. Official. Another one was Sitting Down with Standups. That was probably one of the cooler ones. These were all cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not rating all these, but the Sitting Down with Standups podcast was a fun experience because it was my friend from Detroit. I think is it Steven Sullivan. I forget the names of everybody I know. He's a dude who interviewed me for his zine back in the day, and this was like, I want to say like when I was in early recovery, 2013 or 2014. He sent me an interview for a zine. He's friends with Drew Andrews, Andy Cattell, our buddy here who checks in. He isn't checked in this week, but whatever. But also buy his God Stomper Captain Three Leg split, by the way. Check it out. It's a new one. My friend's God Stomper, Captain Three Leg. I put them together through a suggestion. This release is out there. It's a CD. Check it out. If you know me and you're closer to me, I got Paul's copies, and I can easily sell them for him because Paul needs to come pick them up. But any money made will go directly to Paul and whatever he wants to do with it. And they're only like $3, $6 if you're mailing, or buy them off Andy. Please go to CaptainThreeLeg.com or not. MortvilleNoise.com and get Andy CD. And he's got another CD coming out, Forced Expression, and it hurts his feelings that people don't share the upcoming releases of what he's doing. I've heard Forced Expression. If you're into old school hardcore, that kind of old school, that whatever, it's good. It's good, cool shit. Not so much old school hardcore, but like the new school of old school hardcore. So kind of like spaz-ish. That era of stuff, whatever. I'm just digging myself a hole. Sitting Down with Standups, that was a podcast from Detroit. These guys in Detroit. So Steven is like one of the regulars on it, and he suggested me to that group, and had a great time talking with these guys early on in the shelter in place. They were very cool, just to bullshit with and whatever. Plus, it was like dealing with some they're all kind of white dudes from Detroit with some really interesting perspectives on things. They weren't sensitive, is what I'll say, and it was nice being on a podcast where I felt like I could say whatever I wanted, but also I'm kind of reminding them like, yeah, I'm more conditioned to be a little more mindful of you know, the whole punching up, punching down bullshit, even though I don't really care that much. It's just knowing how it's perceived, and I just don't like dealing with bullshit. Like an Adult, that's another podcast. My friend Chris Ferdinandson, and Mike. Oh God, it's been in the morning. And Mike Nordstrom, those two guys, good comic friends of mine, and they interviewed me. Got into good podcast. Got into some uncomfortable territory there with some of my recent porn viewing. And but it was not, I mean, nothing I'm that embarrassed about, you know, everything I've talked about with my sponsor. But yeah, no, it was fun. Just fun talking about some stuff with them, and then, you know, having some uncomfortable laughs. Next one, this one's more of a serious podcast. All right, so put your serious face on. This one was Pre-Existing Condition with my friend Priyanka, Wali, and Sammy Obeid. Sammy Obeid of the Netflix show 100 Humans, and he's been on TV several times, and yet I still see him at the shittiest of open mics, where I don't think he's getting any mileage out of what he's trying to work on. But they put me on that show. It's a show talking about different pre-existing conditions, like dealing, like as far as health and in relation to whatever they bring it up for. I was brought on because, as they call it, I'm in remission from fatal alcohol syndrome or something like that, whatever the medical term was. And I basically went on there kind of discussing one of the things that cracks me up about she had a lot of information on the medical side that I am very unaware of, because medicine, the medical field can't explain why recovery works with Narcotics Anonymous and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. These are programs that, as I've read on early on in AA, the medical field, when it was dealing with hardcore alcoholics, they would always reach a point of like, I don't know what to do. But we're here that these guys are doing something that works. And that's really all the medical field can really attribute to it. And it makes perfect sense as somebody who has experienced and found it working in my life, why and how it works. It can't be medically explained. It's something different. And I talk about that on that podcast. So turn into that one. The next one is my buddy Ryne Watkins. He interviewed me on this show, and I'm forgetting the name of it, and I didn't bother to look it up before I recorded this, but you'll see the name right here. So I'll have all the information for you right here on his show, and we had a great discussion about comedy and whatnot, just dealing with not just the subject comedy. And so, I'll be honest, I forgot the conversation, but it was a good time. I like Ryne. Ryne's cool. Good dude. Newer comic around the area. Comes from battle rap. So, I come from music myself, so we had a good discussion relating to that. This next thing is also Luke Soin, my buddy Luke Soin. He hit me up specifically with an assignment. And that assignment, I was kind of like, he basically told me, here, watch this video. You're going to see somebody that looks like you at this part, and he's in it for this guy's in it for all of a few seconds. Here, you can see it. And then he said, can you film me a clip of something, to do with that? And when you give me like a vague instruction, I need direction. If you have a vision of something, I gave specific direction. Like last episode, for anybody who watched the last episode, the Bane, comedy Bane, I gave him specific instructions, and he didn't follow those specific instructions. All he heard was roast Mean Dave. That's all that dumbass heard. And, and James Vergon's cool. I'm cool with him and all that. But he drinks too much and he's a dumbass. And so that's what he thought I asked for, was just make a video of just roasting me like it's like. And I said, no, I want you to roast me throughout clips where you're hijacking my show, and the main carrot you're dangling over, the main thing that you're trying to hold over me, is that you're going to reveal my last name as if it's some big deal. He didn't follow shit, because from what I understand, he drinks a pint of vodka a day. So, but you saw what I did. I made use of the video that he sent me. Made it look like, I tried to make it look like all that kind of stuff. You see what I can do? The magic of editing, man. So, anyway. that's beside the point. Oh, if you want to see something stupid of his, here, check this out. And there you go. So Luke Soin here's this clip. Here, check out the clip right here.
Oh, look, it's Mean Dave. Mean Dave showed up. Why is he here? Comedian Mean Dave from the Bay Area comes, and now he's in Daisy Keech video.
Hey, Luke. That's not me. I've been here, home, quarantining the entire time. I don't own a Hummer, haven't driven a Hummer or any car in over 6 years. 2 DUIs, bro. Hence being in recovery and sober. Hate the desert, hate the sun, I hate smiling. That dude still looks fatter. I know I've gained some weight and all, but he still looks like he has a fatter head than me. Plus, I'm pro thirst trap. I'm all for the thoughts on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, doing their thought business. So I don't understand why you're picking on those poor women. Speaking of picking on women, I've been watching the Jeffrey Epstein documentary today, so I have better things to do with my time. I hope you do find some too. Take care. And there you go. So you got the clip there, and pretty funny, whatever. Now you want the context of it. If you want to see it in all of the context that Luke created, check out Luke's channel. He's at Epic, I believe it's Epic Tiki Comedy on YouTube. Just check out his channel. He does these episodes, and they're all, they look great. But it was pretty cool. He basically just watches some shit and picks on, YouTube videos that are more popular than his, which I love. I'm a hater. And then he involved me in that one, and it turned out really cool, I thought. And then the last but not least, there's one more after this. Tell Me About Your Dad, which I don't think is released yet. They're still in the process of editing it, but keep an eye out for it. It's a new podcast that I was interviewed for, talking about my 2 dads, and not in the gay way. I have 2 dads, my stepdad, Mark, and my biological father, David, and I love them both. They've both been big, it's funny, when I was growing up, we had a house, and it was in Newark, and my parents, they were trying to fix up the front yard, and they built these 4 large pillars that were supposed to be an overhang for their garden or whatever. And my friend Dennis actually made a song called 4 Large Pillars in his grindcore band, one-man grindcore band, Pity Party. And he goes, this song's about Dave Gordillo's house. It's called 4 Large Pillars. Yeah, take that, Bane. Notice I said my last name. My 4 parents. I have a mom, I have a stepdad, I have a stepmom, and a dad. They're the 4 large pillars of my life, And so I did this podcast called Tell Me About Your Dad, and I talked about both my dad and my stepdad, and their, how they came into my life, and the periods of my life where they both were, both a challenge, and the guy and my dad, because they both definitely. The thing about it that I've learned through all of that shit is when parents are just kids who have kids, and they get older, and they're figuring out their own lives, and some take longer than others, and also just because somebody seems like an adult and someone you look up to doesn't mean they can't make mistakes. People make mistakes even as you become adults with them. And so, went through a lot and talked through a lot, and it was a great experience, and I think the podcast is going to come out really good. They were really happy with the episode, and just talking about just some stuff that, and I kept it into an hour. See how hard it is even just for me to do. I was just hoping this would be like 20 minutes, and I spent fucking nearly 20 minutes talking about some shit I had no business talking about. So anyways, we got to wrap this fucker up. Oh yeah, one more to check out. Please check out Nina G's comedy time capsule. I believe I've advertised them before. That's another thing that I participated in. But also I edited them, And if you want to see some great interviews with Nina G and a bunch of comedians from all over talking about shelter in place, check that out too. So yeah, that being said, oh yeah, we got one more checking in with the first checking in here with our buddy AJ DeMello and Buddy.
We're live from Turlock. I haven't been able to gather much, but I did get this ball. I did have this ball.
All right, that was neat, wasn't it? Isn't that cool? I don't know why the show's kind of devolving where we're getting more checking-ins with dogs, don't you know? And oh yeah, got another one here from AJ.
Okay, we're gonna do a video. Is there anything you would like to say to the people about what's going on in this former, once great country of ours? Or was the country ever great? I mean, if you think about it, you know, I mean, has it been? Buddy, what do you think?
And there you have it. Okay, so I was checking in with dogs today instead of people. All right, so that being said, I think we've got it all handled. Come check out our Zoom shows. We're still in operation through June. Every Thursday at 7 o'clock, we've got the Comedians Show and Tell. This week it's Comedians Parents Show and Tell, special edition with starring my parents, Mark and Rebecca. Well, 2 of the 4, and Nina G's parents, Kathy and Jerry. So it's going to be a really fun episode with special guest host Eric Summers going ballistic. And then after him or after them, what is it? Sunday, every Sunday, another terrible podcast by Comics in Isolation, 6 p.m. on Zoom. This week's guests, I don't know who we got yet. We probably haven't found them yet, but we'll have them. We had a great episode last week talking about all the current issues with Black Lives Matter and whatnot. And it was a really good episode. I want to thank everybody who watches these, who's been supportive. Also, yeah, here, feel free to hit me up at the Venmo if you want to support the show, or the PayPal if you enjoy these episodes and want to help out with my just standard living. But also, you can feel free. Why don't you donate to some of the charities that are helping people deal with a lot of the current crises. Dealing with the culture crisis, helping with the Black Lives Matter and all the surrounding people that are dealing with the legalese, getting protesters out of jail and whatnot, and helping them out. So beyond that, we'll see you in either 2 weeks, maybe, who knows, whatever. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. Hit the music, Captain 3-Leg.
I mean, you know what I mean? You know what I say? You know what I mean? Me, you know what I mean? I say what I mean. That's true. I mean what I say. I'm so mean I had a dream I beat myself up. I put my nose, I put my head, I wrestle myself to the ground. That's how mean. You know what I mean? I practically lie. And it took me all night. And I give it all right. Because I'm so mean. Jump myself to death and broke the choke and walked out. Then I snapped my cup up and threw it across the fucking room. I mean what I say. You know what I mean? I mean it in spit. I mean it in shit. I mean it in mean. I mean.
You wanna go for a walk?